In 1521, Ferdinand Magellan arrived in the Philippines with guns, armor, and the confidence of a European conquistador. He expected easy victory. He expected primitive warriors with stone weapons to flee in terror. Instead, he encountered something that shattered the myth of European invincibility. A Filipino warrior named Lapulapu, who not only stood his ground, he defeated Magellan in direct combat. Today on Echoes Before Empires, we're telling the story of the Battle of Mactan, the day Europeans discovered that ancient Philippines had warriors, strategy, and military capability they couldn't match. This is the story your textbook buried, and it changes everything. If you're ready to see real history, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's go. The setup. Magellan arrives. To understand why Magellan lost, we need to understand who he was and what he expected. Ferdinand Magellan was a Portuguese explorer working for Spain. He sailed around the world, claiming territories for European powers. He was confident, experienced, and backed by Spanish military power. In March 1521, Magellan's expedition reached the Philippines. He was looking for wealth, trade opportunities, and territory to claim for Spain. When Magellan arrived, he encountered the Raja of Cebu, a Filipino ruler who initially agreed to trade and form an alliance. Things seemed to be going well for Magellan. Easy victory seemed assured. But there was a problem. Lapulapu. Lapulapu was a chieftain of the nearby island of Mactan. He refused to submit to Spanish authority. He refused to acknowledge the Raja of Cebu's alliance with Magellan. He refused to pay tribute. So Magellan decided to teach this insolent native a lesson. He decided to invade Mactan and crush Lapulapu's resistance. This was a critical mistake. See, Magellan didn't understand what he was facing. He thought he was dealing with primitive warriors. He didn't realize he was facing a sophisticated military strategist who understood his home territory better than anyone. Magellan believed European military technology was unbeatable. Guns, armor, organization. He thought these gave him an automatic advantage over any native warrior. He was wrong. Lapulapu, the warrior. Who was Lapulapu? Lapulapu was a Filipino chieftain who controlled Mactan, a strategic island in the Visayan region. He was a skilled warrior and military strategist with significant influence in the area. But more importantly, Lapulapu was a leader who understood power and refused to be dominated. When Magellan arrived demanding submission, Lapulapu saw through the facade. He understood that accepting Spanish authority meant losing his power, his territory, and his freedom. So he refused. Simple as that. This refusal wasn't suicidal bravado. It was calculated resistance. Lapulapu knew his advantage. He understood Mactan's terrain, he had trained warriors loyal to him, and he had superior local knowledge that no foreign invader could match. Spanish chroniclers documented Lapulapu's character. They noted he was proud, fierce, and unwilling to submit. They treated his resistance as arrogance, but it was actually strategic wisdom. Lapulapu gathered his warriors, documented as numbering around 1,500 men. These weren't untrained civilians. These were experienced fighters who understood combat, strategy, and warfare. They prepared for what they knew was coming: Magellan's invasion. Historical records suggest Lapulapu and his advisors analyzed Magellan's strengths and weaknesses. They understood guns were dangerous at distance, but useless in close combat. They understood European armor was heavy and made movement difficult in tropical heat. They understood their island's terrain could be used to their advantage. Lapulapu didn't just refuse submission. He prepared for war. The Battle of Mactan. On April 27, 1521, Magellan led his forces to Mactan to crush Lapulapu's resistance. Magellan's force, approximately 50 to 60 European soldiers with guns, armor, and crossbows, plus approximately 1,000 Filipino allies from Cebu under the Raja's command. Lapulapu's force, approximately 1,500 warriors with traditional weapons, spears, bamboo shields, tribal knowledge. On paper, Magellan had superior military technology. Guns versus traditional weapons seemed like an obvious advantage. But warfare isn't decided by technology alone. It's decided by strategy, terrain knowledge, and warrior capability. Here's what happened. Magellan's force landed on Mactan's beach at dawn. They expected a quick, easy victory. They expected Lapulapu's warriors to be frightened by the sight of European guns and armor. Instead, they encountered organized resistance. Lapulapu's warriors attacked immediately. They had studied Magellan's approach. They knew his landing spot. They were ready. The Spanish guns fired, loud, terrifying, devastating. Several of Lapulapu's warriors fell. For a moment, Spanish confidence grew. The primitive warriors were dying to superior technology. But then something unexpected happened. Lapulapu's warriors didn't retreat. They pressed forward. See, Lapulapu had instructed his warriors to avoid the guns at distance and close in quickly for hand-to-hand combat, where the Spanish advantage disappeared. This was sophisticated military strategy, understanding your enemy's weaknesses and exploiting them. As the Filipino warriors closed the distance, the Spanish guns became less effective. The Europeans were outnumbered and fighting in unfamiliar terrain against warriors who understood every inch of their homeland. Historical records describe the chaos of close combat. Filipino warriors using speed and agility against armored, exhausted Europeans struggling in the tropical heat. Magellan himself was wounded. According to accounts, a Filipino warrior hit his leg with a poisoned dart. Magellan's leg began to bleed heavily. He became weakened. The tide of battle turned decisively against the Spanish. In the chaos of close combat, Magellan became isolated, surrounded by Filipino warriors, bleeding from multiple wounds, exhausted from fighting in heavy armor in tropical heat. Magellan was killed. According to Filipino accounts preserved in oral tradition and documented by historians, a warrior named Lapulapu, or possibly another warrior in Lapulapu's force, delivered the killing blow. Magellan died on the island of Mactan, killed by Filipino warriors. When the Spanish retreated, in full retreat now, no longer in control, they had lost their leader and suffered significant casualties. Lapulapu's warriors had won. This wasn't a lucky accident. This wasn't a massacre of innocent people. This was a military victory by a strategic commander against a well-armed invader. Why this matters? Here's why this battle is so important and why it's been buried in history books. First, it proves that Europeans weren't invincible. Magellan had guns, armor, and experience. He was defeated by a warrior with traditional weapons and superior strategy. This destroys the narrative that European military technology automatically guaranteed victory. Second, it proves ancient Filipinos had sophisticated military capability. Lapulapu didn't just stumble into victory. He analyzed Magellan's approach, identified weaknesses, developed counter-strategy, and executed it flawlessly. This is sophisticated military thinking. Third, it proved that Filipino warriors could stand against European invaders. When given the choice, when properly led, when fighting on their home territory, they could win. But here's the tragedy. This wasn't the beginning of a long Filipino resistance that expelled colonizers. Magellan's death set back Spanish colonization briefly, but it ultimately intensified Spanish efforts. They sent more ships, more soldiers, more firepower. It took Spain over 40 years to fully conquer the Philippines, but eventually superior numbers and resources overwhelmed Filipino resistance. The Philippines fell under Spanish colonial control. But before that happened, there was a moment at the Battle of Mactan when Filipino warriors proved they could defeat European invaders. That moment was erased from history. Spanish historians minimized the battle. They portrayed Magellan's death as a tragic accident, not a military defeat. They downplayed Lapulapu's role. They discouraged further tales of Filipino military success. Later historians, writing in European colonial tradition, accepted the Spanish narrative. Magellan's death was presented as an anomaly, not evidence of sophisticated Filipino military capability. But the truth was documented. Spanish chronicles recorded it. Filipino oral traditions preserved it. Modern historians have pieced together what actually happened. And the story is, ancient Filipinos defeated one of Europe's most famous explorers through superior strategy and warrior skill. Lapulapu's legacy. What happened to Lapulapu after his victory? Historical records become scarce. We know he continued resisting Spanish colonization. We know he wasn't ultimately defeated. There's no record on his capture or death in battle with Spanish forces. Some historians believe Lapulapu died of natural causes years later, still unconquered, still resisting. What we do know, Lapulapu became a symbol of resistance, a symbol that Filipino warriors could stand against European invaders. In Filipino culture, Lapulapu is remembered as a hero, the first Filipino to defeat a European invader. Mactan itself became sacred ground in Filipino consciousness. The battle became legend. And while Magellan is remembered as a great explorer by Europeans, in the Philippines, his death is remembered differently, as proof that ancient Filipinos were warriors, not victims, as proof that they could fight for their freedom. Lapulapu's legacy is decolonization. His legacy is resistance. His legacy is the reminder that history could have been different if enough warriors like him had emerged to continue the fight. Today, there's a Lapulapu monument in Mactan. It commemorates the warrior who defeated Magellan. Every year, Filipinos remember the Battle of Mactan as a victory, not a defeat. This is what Echoes Before Empires is about. Telling the stories of resistance, honoring the warriors who fought for their freedom, reclaiming history that colonizers tried to erase. Outro. Magellan didn't die to disease. He didn't die to accident. He died in combat against a Filipino warrior who understood strategy, terrain, and how to defeat a technologically superior enemy. That battle proved something Europeans didn't want to admit. Ancient Philippines had warriors, strategy, and military capability. They weren't primitive. They could fight. They could win. And for a moment, they did. If this video showed you history the way it actually happened, please like and subscribe to Echoes Before Empires. Comment below. What shocked you most about the Battle of Mactan? Which warriors deserve more historical recognition? I read every comment. Share this video with people who need to know that ancient Filipinos weren't conquered because they were primitive. They were conquered despite being sophisticated, strategic, and brave. The truth is out there, and it's far more incredible than anything colonizers wanted you to believe. Thanks for watching Echoes Before Empires. See you in the next one.